keep doing what you're scared of doing. That's
Yeah.
like the easiest pathway to growth right there.
Keila Shaheen, thank you. And I'm so excited you're here on Quick Before You Forget today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to dive into all of our shared passions, self-help, mental health, journaling, creativity, music. There's just so much to talk about.
There
So,
is so much to talk
yep.
about. I don't even really know where to start, but I will
Yeah.
start by making sure that our friends who don't know who you are get to know you a little bit better because they need to know who Keila is for real. So Keila is an acclaimed best-selling author, creator, genius marketer, and guide in the world of inner work, best known for helping people face the parts of themselves that they've hidden through shadow work and now step into who they're becoming through light work. Her work sits at the intersection of healing and expansion, reminding us that we're not just here to process our pain, but we're here to remember our power. Because becoming whole isn't about choosing shadow or light, it's about learning to hold both. And I believe we do that through an amount of storytelling. And I believe that our story is our superpower. So, Keila, what I want to do today is walk through your story a little bit, like past, present, and future, and just learn from you. Does that sound like fun?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to
Yay.
dive into it. And
So,
thank you for that. That was a beautiful introduction.
thank
Really,
you. I
uh,
appreciate that.
holding the tension between opposites is where we find wholeness and a new pathway can emerge. So that's my hope through all this work.
Well, it's helped me greatly. And in case y'all can't, for anybody that's listening instead of watching, first of all, you're missing out because you need to go watch these episodes and watching them is way more fun. And I have behind me all of these amazing journals that I have put so much of my heart and soul into. So, and there, Kayla's, there's the shadow work journal that you guys have maybe heard about, but then there's more. There was the 369 one, there was the book of shadow work, and most recently, we have a new one. The Lightwork
Like,
Journal.
oh,
And honestly, for reasons that everybody that knows me will understand, this is my favorite one because it's kind of like the follow-up. It's like the like we learned about the hard stuff. We worked through the hard stuff, and to me, Kayla, like this feels like the butterfly moment. Like this feels like we had the icky mucky chrysalis time, and now we're like, okay, now we choose the light.
yeah.
So let's just go back a minute because I want to learn about your story a little bit more. And that starts in the past where I think and know that you have people that have shaped who you are today. So is there one person in particular or one relationship from your childhood that has become part of who you are and what you're all building?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my parents, they've always been a huge influence in the way that I think and in my openness to dive deep. Ever since I was a young girl, I have one older brother. So it was always us in the car driving somewhere and then having really deep conversations. And I'm 6 years old and I'm like looking outside the window and considering all these beautiful things about the human experience. So it's really colored the way that I move through the world as an adult in a really meaningful way. And yeah, it's inspiring me to share this kind of thinking and pondering and inquiry with the world. So, yeah, I definitely say my parents because they're also deep thinkers and questioners. And I mean, we all do it in different ways, but it's important to share it in our own authentic ways. So,
What a blessing that is, just to have that openness and that relationship with your parents like that. And you said 6 years old specifically. So I'm wondering if was there something specific that you remember from when you were six that comes to mind?
yeah, definitely like what I described, the car rides. And in a car ride, when you're having a conversation, you're not looking at each other, but like your voices are there. It's kind of this vortex. And I think that's a space for flow. And I think we found like fluid conversations in the car rides that we would have as a family and road trips that we would do. It was a beautiful shared space where we can sort of get lost in our own ideas and conversations. Yeah.
Can I tell you a funny story about road trips?
Mhm.
I just took one with an
Yeah.
100% stranger. So I can't explain why, but I had this like calling and draw to this woman at the gym. It's called Lifetime, and you're not supposed to tape in the area that I was taping, but I saw her reading Let Them, and I walked in, Let Them by Mel Robbins. I saw her reading it, and I walked in, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're so close to the end. I'm so excited for you. I'm so ready for you to embark on this new journey after having read this book, consumed this book because she had highlighters and post-it notes and the whole thing." So I taped her reading the book, and this other woman ended up coming up to her and talking about the book with her, which I thought was the most beautiful moment. And again, I'm not supposed to be taping or taping strangers, like it's two things at the same time. And I posted it on the internet, and Mel Robbins and her team saw it. So
Oh,
they ended up sending us comp tickets to go see her show either in Minneapolis or Detroit. And they sent them to me, and I was like, well, I have to take my new friend Pat from the gym, who I don't know at all. So she and I drove, and she talked for 5.5 hours on our way to Minneapolis literally, this was just last week. And the stories, like you're right, like there is a different flow that happens, like in a car ride, like on a road trip like that, where we legitimately shared, like swapped entire life stories on the roughly 11 hours that I spent in the car with this essential stranger. And it was the coolest experience ever. I wish we could all like go on a road trip with a stranger. Like I would add that to anybody's, a friend of mine called it a deathbed list instead of a bucket list, because
mm,
you can have like a bucket list with things like I want to go to Paris, right?
yeah.
But your deathbed list might include something more. It was Emily Ferret. I just had her on. Your deathbed list might include something more, I don't know what the word is, more purpose driven. Like
Yeah.
I run a marathon, or like things like that. And there's so much that goes into training and running for a marathon in your head and everything else. But
Yeah.
thank you for listening to that story, because you were speaking my language. I love road trips, and the flow of conversation is very beautiful that happens on those road
We have a
trips.
great podcast setup too.
I do.
A great podcast setup, like in the car on a road trip with your
Oh,
guests. That would be really cool.
we should do that.
And
That would be
then
so
at the end, you
fun.
reach your destination.
But
You
do
get
you
to
ever? But do you ever? Because the
hours.
work is
Yeah.
never done. I mean,
Work
that's
is
the
done.
thing. Oh my gosh. So the conversations in the car, and I'm curious though, like when did you start journaling? Were you journaling then at the age of 6? Probably sooner than that.
Yeah, probably. I remember, man, you're really getting me to think super early back. Now all these like flashes of images are coming up, but I think one of my first diaries was this like chunky plastic one that had like a button key thing that you had to press or unlock. And
Yes.
I think that's what unlocked the magic of journaling for me was this beautiful, mystical, chunky toy journal. And it was, yeah, I mean, it's amazing to have a space for yourself to outlet and share your thoughts and feelings without any expectations, without anyone judging you. You can be open and free with yourself and learn a lot. And that's a practice that I've just taken on with me throughout so many seasons of life. And it's inspired me to create more tools for myself and for people who will find it useful.
Well, I've
Um,
found it useful for sure. And, I too, though, like I joke that I have been journaling since I could hold a pencil. And it doesn't, and I'm sure it didn't all make sense. And honestly, between us, it still doesn't. I journal sometimes and I look back, I'm like, what was I saying? But
yeah,
it doesn't matter because you're processing things that are different and I guess easier to process in that space. So can you talk us through like what you're when you're creating these journals? I mean, you said something about like creating something that's helpful for you and being able to share it in a way that's helpful for others. How has that process been like on a creative level for you?
yeah. I'll use the shadow work journal as an example. And that journal was inspired after a dark night of the soul period for myself. This was post-pandemic when I was just getting out of college, stepping into the real world that looked completely different from the world that I grew up in, trying to figure out who I was and what I was meant to do. It was part of it was very heavy and confusing, and I needed to experiment with some things in life, test out different careers. And throughout that process, I did hit a rut and it was hard. It was hard. I looked for a therapist. I couldn't find a good match. In that process, time continued to go on, and I had to sit with myself and ask, what are you going to do about this? Like, what can I take responsibility for and do to help myself in this kind of moment? I knew it wasn't the end. I knew that this wasn't what life was going to look like for the rest of my life. So I was like, okay, how do I work with this? What do I learn from this? How do I grow from this? I was getting really anxious. I was in a job that didn't feel right to me. I didn't feel like I could be my authentic self. I was like, I can't show up fully here. So I started journaling again, sitting in the floor of my closet and getting in there. And that opened up so much for me during that dark time. And I realized what I was doing was shadow work, deep prompts, understanding the root of my anxieties and frustrations, going back into my childhood, learning how to tend, reparent myself in areas that I needed that reparenting. And that's when I started learning more about Carl Jung and his ideas and the way he would go about his psychological practices with clients. And it was extremely helpful. And after a period of maybe 6, 7 months of self-inquiry and shadow work, I felt like I broke through and the weight was lifted. And I actually started showing up in the same exact job position, but with a different energy,
Mm.
carrying myself in a different way with a newfound, source of light. It was alchemy. I took what was heavy and what was painful, and then it turned into gold, and I could show up more clearly. And that was for myself and for people around me. So the transformation is, it's contagious in a way. And I got inspired to create a journal out of my practices. I looked at my diary, I was like, why doesn't this exist? If I had a guided journal, that it could have made my practice a lot more organized or um, less heavy maybe, more easy to process, more grounded to move through. So I started waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning, blasting the Beatles music in my ears. It was something that my family would listen to when I was a kid. So got me in that inner child inspired state. And I started writing and drafting the first draft of the shadow work journal. And it was like this force of creativity just moving through me and excited to take what was confusing and painful and create something from it. I think that's been a huge source of motivation in my life is, once we go through these hardships and confusing times, the clarity and the meaning that we can create on the other side is
Yeah.
wisdom, and it's gold. So there's so much alchemy that we can do in our lives, and that was part of my process. But I put it out there. I didn't share it with a lot of people. I was little, and that's what happens when I create something new and different. It's like, I don't know. I get kind of shy about it, and I just created a TikTok page, and I started posting, different pages of the shadow work journal, and over time I was able to build a really beautiful community around that. Um, and I'm glad it resonated. I wasn't sure if it was going to resonate with a lot of people, but it did.
Yeah, a million or so people who purchased the shadow work journal.
Yeah.
Kayla, like that's incredible. Like, and because I mean, I took a ton of notes while you were talking, so I feel like I have to like circle back on several things. But that's a ton of people that have done, including myself, who have used something that you weren't even really sure would help other people. And I think that speaks to the importance of showing up for something that might not make sense out loud right away, because so many of us have these big ideas and big dreams, and we feel this like indescribable pull toward something, and we don't always go for it because seeing is believing, but you believed in something and
Yeah.
then just kept showing up for that something.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful gift to honestly everybody that's had the opportunity to work through your journals. Um, you also said, how do I grow from this? Like, how do you turn pain into purpose? And that is, I think, a lot easier said than done.
Mhm.
So as you've done some of this work and as this whole community has kind of rallied around the work that you're doing, what advice do you have for somebody that's like stuck and doesn't know what that means or how that looks for them to grow in the hard?
Yeah. I mean, it's easier said than done, but know that this isn't the whole picture. I
Right.
think we tend to, when we are in the muck and in the stuck, that's our whole perspective. But it's important to also use the gift of our imagination, which everyone has, to wonder and ponder and consider the future and other possibilities. What if things looked different? What if you could envision what this is serving you, what this is offering you? Maybe we won't find the answer here and now, but we can walk with the question. And as we walk with the question, we grow and we understand deeper. And eventually, the answer becomes who we are in the future, what we grow into. So that's the beauty of personal growth and development is that the, an the answers to your confusions and your questions, you hold them.
Mm.
And over time, you grow into the answer. You become like the source of wholeness, right?
You grow into the answer.
Mhm. Yeah.
I I admire you so much. You have this poetic way of talking that makes me feel so seen. I joke around like I do. I have been journaling. I've been writing poetry for so long, and I err on the side of being a little bit like poetic out loud to people, and they often are just a little curious, like, that's just Ty. She's a little quirky like that. But it's just so refreshing to speak with somebody that talks like I do. And I think that that's what you said about the contagiousness of transformation. It's so true because your hard work on yourself and your showing up, regardless of it not necessarily always making sense for yourself, led to your growth and transformation. And it's contagious. Like it has sparked into the world in all these really cool ways with other people. And I'm just very grateful for when I can identify when that's happening in the world because it's like we need more light. This world has enough darkness. We have too many bad things going on, and we need more light. So when there are light bringers that just like generate the light through the dark, that's the thing too. Like you've shown up in the darkness for yourself, and by doing that, you showed up for so many more people. Um, and listening to the Beatles. Tell me more about that. What Beatles song?
All you need is love.
That's the perfect one.
There's one that's something about the world goes on. Obla di obla da, life goes on.
Yes.
That's the title of it, but it's such a funny song to listen to while you're like working on a shadow work journal. But that was the energy that I was like, life goes on. And
Mm.
I was just on that wave of life goes on and you can follow the flow. It was really powerful.
And still people don't. So what do people get wrong about shadow work?
There's a lot of misconceptions around shadow work. Just the name in itself, I think, is a little disturbing. Like, oh, working with your shadow. There's this idea that it's demonic, which it's not. It's a psychological practice of self-inquiry and looking into your unconscious. Um, the unconscious is like this vast hidden layer of your psyche that holds everything outside of your conscious awareness. So your repressed memories, your instincts, and also your untapped potential.
Mm.
It's not just like this storage space. It's an active, it's an active wellspring of images, symbols, and materials that shape how we think and how we feel and how we behave in life. Um, but yeah, once when the shadow work journal was taking off, there was definitely like questions and confusion around the practice. And yeah, it's important to know it was developed by Carl Jung. He's a Swiss analytical psychologist. He worked closely with Freud. They had a little breakup. Freud's ideas kind of took over the Western modern mind, how we look at psychology today. Jung's ideas kind of got buried in the shadow of psychology.
Pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. And so it's a really beautiful way to look at your psyche and your soul. Psyche means soul. And we've really taken soul out of psychology. It's more mind body right now in the Western world. But what Carl Jung was presenting and looking at the shadow was soul work, essentially.
I was fascinated by Carl Jung when I did my master's degree in clinical psychology and the undergrad work that I did. I did a lot of study specifically on him. You get to kind of choose and do the papers and stuff, and that feels like 17,000 lives ago. But also, I chose him in the divorce with him and Freud.
Mhm.
And it's funny you should say he got buried in the shadows because I felt that way too. And I think that there was a lot of good he contributed to the world of psychology. And I love that you're such a champion of his. Um, if you could, that makes me wonder. Like, I'm just curious. Like, if you could ask him, if you could ask Carl Jung any question, what would you ask him?
I don't know. I need to really think about this one. Honestly, I feel like he answered all the questions with his books, and I'm so grateful that he was vulnerable enough and courageous enough to write how he wrote because he was doing a lot of his own self-inquiry
Yeah.
and processing, like through the Red Book and
Hmm.
so many of his other books on analytical psychology. Ah, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to get back to that. But
That's fine. We can call.
there's a lot in his books that I feel like I could decode and find answers to, but I guess I would ask him what he would think about light work and shadow work because he paved the way for the archetypal energy of shadow and how we can work with that. But shadow work as a practice really emerged after his time, and it was inspired by his work as well. And it was kind of like the collective understanding of his shadow archetype. So yeah, I wonder what he would think of shadow work and journaling and light work too.
I feel like
That's
you'd be so grateful to like. I'll never forget. I read Rachel Hollis's Girl Wash Your Face back in 2019, like a lot of us did. And there was something that felt unfinished about that book to me. It felt very much like, great. I know that I'm made for more, but now what? Like, and how? Like, it was like you identified so many good things about like what you could do with your life, but there was no like manual. And then, last year she came out with "What if you are the answer?" And I thought that was the coolest bookend to Girl Wash Your Face. Several years later, it was like, she wrote she none of us need a manual on XYZ. We need to know how we can bring it to life. So I think, and this is maybe just because I'm biased and I'm a fan of yours, but I think that he would be super pumped because the Lightwork Journal feels like an and. Like you do the shadow work, and this is how you like Mel Robbins again, like let them and then let me do X. Like it's the action that you the individual take toward building the life that you are becoming. And that's beautiful. So I think he'd be a big fan of yours. But at what point does healing become less about the past and more about the future?
Hmm. I think let me think about this. I'm not sure how I feel about the word healing in terms of this. I think there's healing imposes that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed sometimes. And I think we grow through our experiences in the present moment. Um, and it's more about, I'm like thinking in images right now, so I'm trying to put into words. Connection. Like if there's something open, like for example, a wound, right? Or there's a disconnection, you're maybe not resonating in the current career that you're in or the friendship that you're in. There's a disconnect. And because of that, we start coming up with things to compensate for that disconnect. So healing or recovering from that is really about finding ways to repair the connection to what's being disconnected. And sometimes we don't need to do that through external things. We need to do that in an internal fashion. And then we can show up and feel more connected in our present reality. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
No, it does. It's just interesting because I'm wondering, like, I just feel like a lot of people resist looking at their shadow, even though we know it's there, or working with their shadow, even though we know it's there. And I don't know how, like, because, like, I think there's a difference between awareness and healing.
mhm.
And I don't know how to help, like, and maybe it's not my job to do, but I really wish I could help people, like, bridge that gap. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so how do you know when you're actually doing light work? Not, well, let's pivot off of shadow work. Like, how do you know that the light work is working like in the way that you would want it to work?
So, in my personal practice, I've developed this ability to balance the duality of life. There's going to be a day where you're feeling triggered or anxious or you're rushing through life. And that's a sign to pause and do shadow work. And then there's
How?
a day
Kayla,
where,
how? Like, you are a genius at this. And I'm sorry I hate interrupting people, but like pausing when you're chaotic and triggered is difficult.
Hmm.
And I know it takes practice, but how? Like, how do you slow it down? How do you quiet that noise that can take over?
it's a challenge for sure. And I'll use myself as an example. Like I've been experiencing, um, like I want to move fast and I feel like there's so much to do and then I get in my head and I start experiencing the shadows of anxiety or I don't know, there's like some anger there. So I need to dissolve that. So what I'll do in that process I bring into awareness, okay, I'm feeling this energy, this pull. It's outside of me. It's not me.
Mm.
So awareness first. And then body, like where is this? Is it like in my chest? Is it in my legs? Is it in my arms, my head? I think I hold a lot in my head whenever this happens. So then after that is the action. Like what can you take? What actions can you take to help dissolve this? Or for me recently, it's been like I can slow down time if I slow myself down. And then I end up getting these things done and it feels like magic. And it's like, okay, my shadow was getting in the way. I was, self-sabotaging. So, I mean, everyone's method is going to look different depending on what they're going through. That's why I recommend finding the things that work for you and having that toolkit in the back of your mind whenever you need it.
Do you hear back from your community at all about things that work for them? I'm curious if they're because I my suggestion as a person that's followed you on social media for a very long time would be to follow you because there are things that you do on a daily basis and you share on your particularly like Instagram stories, for example, that I'm like, oh, and you are very gifted at the art of noticing and like paying
Mhm.
attention to when you get, I don't want to call them signs maybe, but just shifts in energy and you're just very aware of things and that I think the thing that people don't recognize is that does take practice.
Mhm.
Like I do Joy from the Ground Up is my little series on TikTok where I have my phone on the ground and I say like, what are you grateful for today? And the reason that I keep showing up and doing those, even though they're super cringy and nobody comments,
Mhm.
I know that, every now and then somebody does and they stop and they pause and they actually look at their world around them and they find something to be grateful for in that moment and that grounds them. And I know that if I can do that for one person, it's so worth it because but it's taken me the practice. Like it's taken me this like you said, like slowing things down in my mind to be able to notice and pick these things up. And now that I've been doing it for I've honestly probably say I've been practicing gratitude and practicing noticing and practicing paying attention to all those little things for like 7 years. And
Wow.
that is what it's taken for me to get to this point now where I can go out into the world and I'm like, wow, look at that pretty tree. And like I have friends in my life that are like, wow, she's looking at the tree. Like it's just a tree tie, but I just see beauty and like the color and life in
Yeah.
4K is
Important.
beautiful.
And when you notice and you feel that connection, that's when you're healing the split between the disconnection that we're experiencing as a culture, with our environment, with ourselves. So that's beautiful.
It's really cool. So I, how do you, hmm, I mean, why is joy, like why is noticing, in your opinion, sometimes harder? Like it should be easier. Like in my opinion, it should be easier, but I feel like it's so much easier to be curmudgeon-y and, to share the misery. And you said a word that is close to my heart about like alchemy. And, you think about like the role that that plays in all of the things. I just, I wish it wasn't so hard sometimes to choose joy, for
Yeah.
example.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. If we're not here, then where are we?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So when you choose to see the glimmers in life, it brings you here. That's the most important place to be.
That
Here.
was beautiful. And talk to me about glimmers. Like people don't know what glimmers are, and I love them. So talk to me, just like level set for people that might not know, they maybe heard the term, but they don't know what it means.
Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. They calm your nervous system. They're present here and now in the moment. And they're like the shimmering glitter of life that you can find, whether it's the way the tree bark is curving and you notice it, or the way someone's talking to you in the middle of a conversation and you see the spark in their eyes. Um, it's that sense of gratitude and aliveness that you can sense in the moment around you. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful practice to start spotting glimmers in your life because it does shift your energy. And in the Zenful Note app, which is an app I created for tracking your triggers and glimmers and checking in with your emotions, you can actually track your glimmers and take pictures of them and write a little note on how you felt before the glimmer and then after the glimmer. So, yeah, there's tools that you can use to cultivate this practice too.
Thank you for mentioning that because I have that tool and I've used it. I should use it more, but I've used it. It's really cool. And I will include the link in the show notes to for people to check that out because it's really it, if you don't know where to start, it's a great place to
Yeah,
start.
there's
So
many resources there. Kind of take all the physical resources that I built and then figured out a way to integrate that into a digital space. So
it's a
definitely.
beautiful digital space, of course. Nothing you do is without a level of intention and care that is very special. So I know that we talked about noticing things and grounding and the Beatles and all of that reminds me of like my whole tool belt is full of music, mindset, and movement. Those are my three words, and music is very, very special to me. And I know it's very, very special to you. So talk to me about the role that music has played in your personal growth and development.
Music has always held like an ocean of my soul that I hadn't dared to swim in yet as an adult. I kind of left it on the sidelines. But in my childhood, it was very, very alive. I would play rock band with my brother and I would sing and he would be on the guitar. And I remember the feeling of that as a quiet, introverted little girl just getting up there to sing on rock band in front of my grandparents and cousins and stuff. We would do things like this and I've taken that practice of vulnerability into my adult life now. Um, I'm part of an electronic band called Sunbella, and it's been a really beautiful space to learn how to do soul work in real time through creativity and lyrics and just different ways to express through sound. It's, with writing, there's still part of me that's organizing and shaping and making sense and taking time. But with music, you can bypass all of that. It feels closer to the instinctual self, closer to something very ancient and primal. It's like not like you're creating so much from the mind as much as you're listening for what wants to come through from something deeper. So it's been an incredible exploration beyond writing for me.
I'm sp- I, you've made me speechless because everything you just said makes so much sense to me at such a deep, deep, deep level. Because I very simply have found so much peace in music and in lyrics and in the expression through all of it, but also just you can tune into a channel of yourself that can be hard to find with everything else going on in the world through music. Music allows you to, like you said, like called it the ocean of your soul. Yes, and that is like like I'm writing that I am we could put that on a t-shirt for real. So check out her music because it's really good, guys. I trust me. She's just there's it's very peaceful, but also just like soulful.
Mm.
And what is your song? Like, what is your song of survival if you had one, if you had to pick one? I know it's hard when you're a music girly, but if you had to pick one, what's your song when you would put on when things are hard and you need to ground yourself and remind yourself why you keep going?
Mm. In moments of hardship, but also on the opposite side of the spectrum of like aliveness and motivation, it would be the same. I feel like they hold the same kind of amounts of energy. So definitely Time by Hans Zimmer.
Oh my gosh. How?
It's just
Girl.
so emotional. It's motivating. It's like de big things happen when you're listening to that song inside. So it's when the tsunami of the ocean is happening. And I think I put that song on when I feel like I need some motivation, or if I am motivated and I want to activate more. I definitely use music as a tool sometimes in practices, whether it's shadow work or manifestation. There's certain energies that songs can hold that will align you emotionally to that emotional pathway towards, what you're trying to achieve. So in my hardcore manifestation days as well, I would put time on and then write, write, write. And also in more of the healing and self-soothing days. Yeah, it's a
Isn't
fit.
that interesting? So I have, for me, a little bit of that song, also Hans Zimmer, anything, but
Mhm.
the sound, I've always been a soundtrack girl. I love a good soundtrack, and it's actually influenced how I kind of soundtrack my life. I listen to music constantly,
Me too.
and and I know I love this about us. And Interstellar is another one that, like, that one is huge for like when I'm feeling creative. Or Lindsay Sterling had Duality come out, I think last year at the
Mm.
very perfect time. I just love the violin, and just her energy is always so like off the charts contagious with all the good things she's just puts into the world. So I, but for you to say time, but also for you to say that it's both. Like you use it when you kind of you use it to kind of balance yourself when you're down, and it keeps you focused when you're up. And that's interesting to me because I've been asking this question and that answer has happened more than I expected. And it's true for me too. Like one of my song of survival that I talk about, aside from the ones that I just spoke of, is Swim by Andrew McMahon. And I've listened to that in some really, really sad times. And I've listened to that in some really, really good times, including getting to see it live 4 times last year. So, it's fascinating to me that we have these songs that are
Yeah.
grounding in both. And
Mhm.
here we are talking about holding both the shadow and the light. And it's just, it kind of brings that to light in a cool way that I wasn't expecting. So one of my questions that I've been asking my everybody is, what you would tell your 22-year-old self. And I know like that's kind of silly because you're older than that, but not by that much. So,
Not by
but you did react. You're like, "Oh," and you thought maybe you had something. And I'm grateful because I was going to say like, what would you tell your like 18-year-old self? Or I was going to go down a couple years. But tell me, what would you tell your 22-year-old self?
Yeah. Well, I had that like reaction with a nod because my 22-year-old self, that's when everything started happening with the shadow work journal. So there was a lot going on in my life at that time.
Yeah.
I think looking back now, I would tell her to have the courage to see yourself and to see the world without illusion. Have the courage to discern what's grounded and right for you versus what is not grounded and not coming from you and your truth.
Mm.
And I say this because success comes with a lot of confusion, good confusion and bad confusion. And you have to learn how to navigate that in a very grounded way. And as someone who's so young and, you know, anything that was coming my way, I was like, wow, this is awesome. But I'm so happy that I had resources and family and people to help ground me and like back me up and ask me questions. And yeah, it's a really, really important skill to practice is discernment, to know what's part of the truth and what's part of an illusion.
Yeah.
It's
As
not,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
I think I'm a dreamer for sure. As are you probably.
I am 100%. Yes.
And that's actually one of my biggest, gifts that help me create and
Mm.
imagine, dream. But yeah, definitely balancing that with discernment and groundedness and truth. That's how you can access your authenticity versus, becoming porous to things around you.
It's not always easy to be the dreamer either. Like
Yeah.
it's definitely because yes, you're right. You nailed it. And I tend to be a little bit I've gotten, I've owned the delusion. Like I've just decided, and that takes a lot of you use the word courage. It takes a lot of courage to decide to just step into it and say, yes, I am a dreamer and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make it happen. And believing in something that doesn't exist yet is very scary. And we do it with the fear. Like you don't eliminate the fear. The fear is still there. I mean, I even I joked online before we got on here because I was nervous to talk to you. And I'm like, why am I so nervous? Like we've been like essentially internet friends for a
Yeah.
bit. And I don't know why I was nervous, but we do it anyway. Like, and
Yeah.
that's where real growth happens is when you can well, you got the fear, but you're doing it anyway.
Yeah. I think that's another great piece of advice is like keep doing what you're scared of doing. That's
Yeah,
like the easiest pathway to growth right there.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Easiest pathway to growth. It's definitely, I mean, not,
What you're scared of.
yes, easy is not the right word though. Like it's because it's hard. Honestly, it's hard, but like it's the most effective, maybe would be a better word. Like the most effective path to growth is to be doing it scared and doing it because it's not easy to show up and be the crazy person that believes
Yeah.
that she can interview Alex Warren at Red Rocks. Like that's like the manifestation that I'm putting out into the world right now. And it's very big and very like people are like, why is she so crazy with this? But I have reasons and they're grounded in a lot of truth, authenticity, and just a desire to, show the world that it's possible to do the things that seem impossible. Because impossible is just a big word thrown around by small people. Um, I could talk to you
What
for so
I'm
long.
curious to know what your personality type is. Your Myers-Briggs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
ENFJ.
I knew it. I'm an INFJ. I had
Yeah.
ENFJ in my head.
Yes, yes.
Love that.
Enneagram 7, which is goodness, what enthusiast. That
Um,
shocks nobody. And yeah, I suppressed it for a long time. Like I thought, and honestly, it's part of why I started drinking, because I thought that I had to be present a certain way in order to be myself. Like I thought that if she's drunk, then that's how she is because she's drunk, and it's just no, that it did backfire tremendously in all the ways, but it I can be who I am and be sober. I'm
yeah,
proud to say that I am who I am and I'm sober. And it's taken a level of bravery and courage to show up as this very real,
yeah.
very whimsical. My son actually paid me the kindest thing when we were at Disney World a couple weeks ago. He was like, Mom, I love that you're so childish.
I love that.
And I
That's
was
great.
like, some moms that I know and I'm friends with and adore would see that as an insult. They'd be like, what do you mean I'm childish? Like, I am a grown up
Yeah,
and don't you
yeah.
talk to me that way. And I thought it was the kindest, sweetest, most beautiful compliment because, yes, at Disney World, I turned into a 12-year-old me who just was like everything was magic. And I just was so, so happy and it was overflowing. And my 10-year-old said that. And I was like, I could see that as negative, or I can see it as the compliment and the gift that it is because I have embraced that inner child so hard.
Love
And
that.
she's so grateful. Honestly, she's very grateful that that inner child is getting to explore and do the things that she always wanted to do at the age of 40 instead of 12, because I was too afraid back then. And that's not for lack of support. Like my mom always said I was made for more. My mom always was my number one fan. She always, I mean, from the day she named me Tyler because she thought that Ty would look good in print. The day that I was born, she already thought that I would be a writer. And, how cool is it that I've gotten to do that? But it's really cool when I've just have I could talk to you for like forever, and I know our time is short, so I need to reel myself in and not forget to ask you one of my most favorite, most important questions, which is if I handed you a megaphone and like the world had to listen to you right now in this moment, what would you say?
I would say that, I mean, the world that we're in right now is changing at a very rapid, drastic pace.
Yeah.
And we are moving into a time of uncertainty and instability. It's very shaky right now. But knowing that chaos provides this energy for both destruction and new creation, it's important for us to pour our attention and energy during this time into things that can positively influence our future and our planet Earth. This is our home as a species. So, what we choose to look at, to embody, to take action on, to say, whether it's in conversation with friends, coworkers, all of this is actively influencing our future. So be mindful and know that what you're doing right now, you have an impact and an influence, and channel it into the future that you want to be part of, that you want to live in. This destruction and creation energy is happening right now. So understand, your place in that too, as a human being.
And it's an opportunity. Like you said something really powerful because it's a chance for us to kind of level set and take something that seems very, you know, messy and make it into something beautiful. And, that's kind of, in my opinion, a little bit of what you've done with the shadow work, turning it into the light work. So one more thing I want to ask is, what are you most excited about? Like what if somebody if somebody was going to ask you a question about this book and you could like guide the ship and have them ask you whatever question you wanted to answer, what would it be?
Hmm. Like, what is this going to do for me? And I think there's so much, so much that can be unlocked from yourself when you pay attention to your light and you nurture it. Because your light is your energy force. It's your willpower, it's the life force, and you can channel it in a way where it can serve you and it can serve the communities around you. In a time right now where there's so much like unconscious material circulating, fear, division, projection, reactivity, there's a real impact in choosing to move with awareness instead of contributing to the same heaviness.
Mm,
Um, and
beautiful.
light was never meant to erase darkness entirely. It was meant to help orient ourselves amongst the darkness. So yeah, light work has gifted me with so much motivation and purpose and meaning. Coming out of a time where I was so heavy into shadow work and deep in that practice, there's light at the end of the tunnel, as we hope. And once you get there, it's beautiful. I mean, you can do so much with the light that we all hold. Everyone has this spark. So when you feel like you're living in the gray, or you're in the tunnel and you don't see the end of it, know that you can practice nurturing and tending to this source of light. And once you see the spark, you can navigate so much better in life with it. But yeah, check out the Lightwork Journal. It's available anywhere books are sold. It's it's formatted in the same way as the Shadow Work Journal, so it's a workbook. It's guided. There's different parts in it. There's more of a educational reading section in the beginning, an introduction to light work, what light has meant in psychology and mythology and spirituality. And there's exercises. There's also interactive portions like QR codes you can scan with your phone. They link out to meditations, visualizations, and even music that combines like the the format of meditation. So it's a very immersive book, and I hope people will have the courage to dive in and cultivate their inner light.
That's the thing. You said something really cool about the tunnel and the light at the end of the tunnel. But the thing that I've realized working through the darkness is that we are the light. We can
Mhm.
choose to
Yeah.
be the light in that dark tunnel. And we have the capability of doing that. And that is such a gift and a blessing and something that I've come to through my faith and through, my belief in God and his yellow brick road path for me that I keep showing up and walking on, even though I don't always know what's going to happen. And the bricks sometimes like fall out from under me. And I keep showing up anyway because I've discovered and practiced and now can say with some level of confidence and joy that I have figured out how to be the light that I need. And I'm so grateful because it has a lot to do with people like you and the work that you've done and the work that you've shared. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and for doing all of the hard work and all of the fun work and all of the things. I am so grateful. And yeah, we'll see you next time, friends, on Quick Before You Forget.
Thanks so much, Ty. I appreciate you giving me the space to share authentically. And yeah, this conversation was lots of fun. I
I thought so
appreciate
too. So we might just have to do it again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Until then, we'll see you next time.
Guys, bye.
Thank you for being here with me today on Quick Before You Forget. Please like, share, and subscribe as that helps the show so much, and I really appreciate it. And I'll see you next time on Quick Before You Forget.